Okay, so guys, quickly, when we look at basically today's class, we are looking at number one, long run. We want to sort of finish long run. We want to talk about first the relationship between short run and long run. Okay, so let's write this relationship between short run and long run. So what we say is that the long run average cost curve, this long run average cost curve, guys, is made up of many short run curves. So in other words, it's kind of like a LRAC. It's sometimes also called a curves that envelopes you know, other many short run curves. And the relationship is such that if I look at a particular SRAS, let's say, for example, I am right now producing, let's say, 100 units, okay? And let's say I'm producing at point A. Now, this point A is both on the short run and long run, right? You short run may be A or long run may be A. So we are at this point, and let's say I'm making, let's say, this at $10. And you come to me in the short run and you say, if you come to me in the short run, you say, I want you to produce, for example, 120 units. I will say in the short run, at best, I can make you at point B. You guys get it? Which means that I can't make you anything in the short run other than being at a SR, if I'm at SRAS not, Uh, so I will be at this point. So I cannot make you 120 units at a cost like lower than, let's say, like at point B. But in the long run, when all factors of production are available, ये भी हो सकता है कि I can be producing at this point C. What I'm trying to say is this that कि short run में जब आप किसी एक कर्व पे होते हो तो आप अज्यूम करते हो कि एटलीस्ट वन फैक्टर ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इज फिक्स सो अ फर्म व्हेन दे मेक 100 यूनिट्स ऑफ आउटपुट द बेस्ट कॉस्ट दे कैन मैच इज $10. कल अगर आप 120 बनाने के लिए बोलोगे उसको तो द बेस्ट कॉस्ट दे विल मैच विल बी लेट्स से ये a little less than $10, but the the idea is this that if you want the firm to make at the lowest possible cost, that will only happen in the long run. So we say कि शॉर्ट रन और लॉन्ग रन में रिलेशनशिप ये है कि हर लॉन्ग रन का एक शॉर्ट रन होता है राइट सो फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं यहाँ पर हूँ या मैं यहाँ पर हूँ या मैं यहाँ पे ऑल दीज पॉइंट्स आर my long run points but they also are my short run points okay so LRAC curve is made up of many SRACs नंबर वन क्योंकि जैसे अगर मैं बोलूँ 2 साल बाद की मेरी कॉस्ट क्या होगी 2 साल बाद एक पर्टिकुलर शॉर्ट रन एवरेज कॉस्ट होगा तो व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज दिस दैट इन द लॉन्ग रन you will be building more factories for example and you might be experiencing economies of scale but each successive factory will allow it to produce at a new SRAS curve तो हम ये कह रहे हैं कि हर नई फैक्ट्री जो आप डालोगे बनाओगे वो आपको एक नए SRAS पे ले जाएगी जो उस टाइम का शॉर्ट रन होगा बट वो शॉर्ट रन जो है वो किसी लॉन्ग रन का भी पार्ट होगा जैसे 2 साल बाद फॉर एग्जाम्पल सीडर जो है वो दो नए कैंपस डालता है तो वो लॉन्ग रन में तो दो नए कैंपस डल रहे हैं बट एक 2 साल बाद जब हम उस साल में होंगे तो हम एक पर्टिकुलर शॉर्ट रन में होंगे सो वी से दैट with two factories, it will face, for example, SRAS1, with three factories, SRAS2, and so on. Each SRAS corresponds to a particular amount of the factor that is fixed in the short run. In this case, let's say factory. So there are many SRAS curves that would be drawn, that would be drawn um, between the one shown, since factory of different sizes could be built एंड एक्सपेंडेड सो जैसे जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल इस एग्जाम्पल में करके रहे जैसे जैसे आप नई जैसे फैक्ट्रीज डालते रहेंगे जैसे सीडर नए कैंपसेस डालता रहेगा एक आप नए SRAS पे आओगे जिसका एक जो एस आर ए सी पे आओगे जो एक और LRAC से sort of connected होगा so what we are trying to say here is this guys the SRACs are basically curves that are enveloped by the LRAC curve. और LRAC में क्या assumption होती है कि all factors of production are variable and therefore you're producing at the lowest possible cost. Now, एक important point यहाँ पे MCQs में बहुत आता है. I want you guys to write this that uh, it is not it is not required for short run average cost to be at the lowest point when it meets long run average cost curve. Are you all with me? इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अगर आप ये गौर से देखें SRAC कर्व, इसका मिनिमम पॉइंट शायद यहाँ पर है, लेकिन ये जरूरी नहीं है कि SRAC LRAC के लोएस्ट पॉइंट पे मिले. यानी कि अगर आप शॉर्ट रन में लोएस्ट कॉस्ट पे होंगे, इसका मतलब नहीं है कि आप लॉन्ग रन में भी लोएस्ट कॉस्ट पे होंगे. हो सकता है लॉन्ग रन का लोएस्ट कॉस्ट पॉइंट सी हो बट शॉर्ट रन का लोएस्ट पॉइंट पॉइंट डी हो. सो जरूरी नहीं है, इट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड कि SRAC LRAC को अपने मिनिमम पॉइंट पे मिले. गॉट इट गाइस? डज दैट मेक सेंस? ये जरूरी नहीं है, बिकॉज शॉर्ट रन में तो आपके पास सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज ये आता है, यू हैव सम फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन व्हिच आर फिक्स. सो इट्स नॉट रियली पॉसिबल फॉर यू टू बी मिनिमाइजिंग योर कॉस्ट in SRAC, which is also minimizing your cost in LRAC. It could be a coincidence that this may happen. Like for example, यहाँ पे आप कह सकते हो SRAC and LRAC are both meeting at the minimum point. Could be a complete coincidence, but it's not really necessary for this condition to be met. Okay, does that make sense? Now, this is all MCQ stuff, so this is all theoretical stuff. So that's why you need to understand these points from the MCQ perspective, but not from any other perspective. Any questions, guys? Sorry, somebody is waiting the thing. Any questions so far? People who've joined us, कोई सवाल बच्चों, anything you would like to ask? So for all of us who've come back, who've come right now, simply LRAC curve is a curve that envelopes many short-run average cost curves. And we say this that SRAC, as you sort of build more factories, you are going to, like I'm explaining in one more time, as you keep on building more factories, you will move to another SRAC curve, right? The only way you'll build factories, if factories are your fixed factor, is that you are in the long run. तो जैसे जैसे आप फैक्ट्रीज बिल्ड करोगे आप LRAC में मूव करते रहोगे. बट जब आप फैक्ट्रीज बिल्ड करोगे, तो जब जैसे पहली फैक्ट्री बिल्ड की तो आप जैसे यहाँ पे थे, दूसरी फैक्ट्री बिल्ड की तो आप यहाँ पे थे, तीसरी फैक्ट्री बिल्ड की तो आप यहाँ पे थे, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. सो जब आप तीसरी फैक्ट्री बिल्ड की, जैसे मैंने तीसरे साल में तीसरी फैक्ट्री बिल्ड की, तो आई विल बी इन SRAC. इस कर्व पे आ गया, बिकॉज ये थर्ड कर्व है ना, पहला दूसरा तीसरा, इस कर्व पे आ गया. इस कर्व ये कर्व बता रहा है कि आप दूसरे साल अपना तीसरी फैक्ट्री पे हो, यू नो. एंड सो SRAC, you are on this SRAC, which means that as you move and keep on adding more factories or changing all your factors of production, you will keep on moving and achieve economies of scale and then diseconomies of scale. But every long run has a particular short run as well. That's what we say, right? Which makes sense. अब से 2 साल बाद सीधे से एक और कैंपस शुरू करे, तो हो सकता है वो 2 साल बाद वो एक कैंपस शुरू करे, लेकिन अभी एज वी स्पीक इट्स लॉन्ग रन. 2 साल बाद that would be a particular short run. Make sense? That's what we say. Also, last thing we are saying is that SRAC meets LRAC at a point that does not need to be the minimum point of your SRAC curve. Okay, so that's another condition we're saying. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है, it's not important for SRAC to meet LRAC at SRAC's minimum point. Got it, guys? So another important point to remember. Okay, now guys, So that's why sometimes what we call SRAC LRAC curve as an envelope curve, since it envelopes many short run curves. Okay, short run curves make up your long run curve as well. Are we good to move on? Does that make sense? इंशरा समझ आया बच्चा? Okay. So, guys, now we come to another point, which is basically economies of scale. कौन-कौन सी होती हैं? So we say when we look at economies of scale, when we look at economies of scale can be what we call internal versus external. Okay, internal economies of scale is when a firm increases the size of its operations. You know, in short, quantity goes up. External economies of scale happens when the whole industry industry grows. Okay, and internal economies of scale will result in a movement along LRAC, while external economies of scale, जब the whole industry grows, which benefits you and you makes your average cost to go down, this is what we call results in a shift of the LRAC. ये क्यों होते हैं? We'll talk about this in 1 minute. इसी तरह diseconomies of scale भी हो सकते हैं. Diseconomies of scale can be internal and external. We'll talk about that in a little while. But economies of scale basically means, when you say average cost is going down, that's what we call economies of scale, and it could be internal and external. So internal economies of scale क्या होते हैं? Let's talk about this. We say internal economies of scale basically can be of 5 types. It could be simply when you are increasing your quantity. Right? Remember, quantity goes up. Whenever quantity goes up, or whenever quantity goes up, internal economies of scale will happen. Let's say सीधे पहले 10 बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा था, अब 100 बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा है, 500 बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा है, अब 3000 बच्चों को पढ़ाता है. और जब आप क्वांटिटी को बढ़ाते हो तो देन यू बिकम वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट प्लेयर्स इन द मार्केट. देयर कुड बी पॉसिबिलिटी you could do what we call bulk buying economies of scale, which means as businesses are growing, they can buy in bulk. And when you buy in bulk, you can get major discounts, you have a lot of bargaining power, and as a result of that, your average cost could go down. So bulk buying could be one of the economies of scale, which means simply you are able to buy at a lower price because you're one of the largest players, or your average cost is much lower. Then comes technical economies of scale. Technical economies of scale is simply what happens in the production process. In other words, sometimes when you become large, you are able to basically be able to organize your factors of production in a really good manner. For example, you can buy advanced machinery. You can basically also change the layout of your production. All of these can result in you to have more efficiency because now you are a larger player. So a larger firm can also afford basically to do R&D. A larger firm can also afford to have better sort of processes, and all of this come together in as a technical economies of scale, which means advantages you get because now you are a large player and you can also therefore organize your factors of production or your production process much better. Financial economies of scale is simply when you are a large player, you get, ability to raise capital cheaply. For example, small firms cannot go to stock market, but large firms can go to stock market. Stock market में जाने का क्या फायदा होता है? When you can get easy access to money. But when you are raising capital as a small player, you may need to only go to the bank, and bank may not give you large loans because you are a small player. So when you are large, you have what we call access to banks, Larger firms, therefore, can find it easier to raise capital as compared to what we call small firms. And that could be also a cause of when we expand production, our average cost goes down. Then comes marketing economies of scale. Marketing economies of scale is the idea which simply says this. That I didn't understand. Somebody says small firms get loans at high interest rates. Exactly, Hamza. Also, small firms either do not get loan or they get it at a very high interest rate or against a collateral, against the mortgage कुछ चीज गिरवी रखवानी पड़ेगी तब आपको मिलता है. Does that make sense? Large firms में ऐसी requirement भी नहीं होती because आपके पास जो है वो businesses होते हैं, उनके accounts भी होते हैं, उनके receivables भी आपके पास आ रहे होते हैं तो आपको टेंशन नहीं होती. Make sense? Then comes, guys, marketing economies of scale. Marketing economies of scale is simply the idea that firms basically, when they are marketing, it's a fixed cost. And let's say if you're a large firm, this fixed costs get divided into many units. And your average fixed cost goes down because the cost of marketing is spread over a wide range of products. For example, अगर आप नेस्ले को देखें, नेस्ले मिल्क भी बेचता है, चॉकलेट बेचता है, yogurt बेचता है. They sell a lot of stuff, right? And if they use Nestle alongside with their name, then there are many other units that they might be selling, many other products they might be selling, and they may not market, but just because the name Nestle is there, they will be able to save a lot of money. So, in short, a new brand may need to spend a lot more money than Nestle because Nestle has a strong name and therefore their fixed costs. A, they have multiple brands. B, the quantity is large, so their average fixed cost is really low. Then comes managerial economies of scale. I'm sorry, guys. Large firms are able to also raise, are also able to hire specialist people. Like, for example, if you're a large firm, you may have a HR manager, you may have a finance manager, you may have a marketing manager, and so on. Small firms simply do not have that luxury. So, specialist managers are an advantage which large firms have and small firms don't have. And that can also result in their average cost to go down because they have people who are really good and specialists at those roles, and therefore those people could do a good job. Make sense? Then comes, guys, risk bearing economies of scale, which is simply an idea that when you are large, you are also able to diversify your costs because large firms can also diversify in terms of geographically, different markets like Karachi and Lahore and Islamabad, and also different products like milk, yogurt, chocolate, and so on. Ayan is saying they can bring new ideas to reduce the average cost of the business. Those managers, yes, they can. Okay. Now we come to what we call external economies of scale. External economies of scale, guys, is an idea that sometimes the industry is growing in size, and that could also be advantageous for the firm. For example, can a 20 marker come on this? Mutahir is saying, and the answer is Mutahir, this is pretty easy stuff. But within a 20 mark question, there was a question that recently came that required you to write almost a half to one page on economies of scale. It was about minimum efficient scale and economies of scale. So you had to write something about it. Make sense? So we'll talk about that question once we get to a particular point. Okay, guys, external economies of scale is simply when the size of the industry grows. And that results in average cost to go down for all level of output because अगर इंडस्ट्री ग्रो करेगी तो सबको फायदा मिलेगा तो आप जितना भी बना रहे होगे उसमें आपकी एवरेज कॉस्ट कम हो जाएगी. एंड फॉर एग्जांपल अगर अच्छा ट्रांसपोर्टेशन एंड कम्युनिकेशन लिंक हो जाए, अगर फॉर एग्जांपल गवर्नमेंट जो है वो अच्छी रोड बना दे, अगर फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे डीएचई एक जमाने में वाज लाइक अ barren land, and then road infrastructures. In fact, schools were the first people to move to DHA phase 8. Then came the community, and better transportation and communication link actually will improve the average cost of all the schools that are found in phase 8. Okay. Ayan, external economies of scale can include government policies, for example. So you're right about that. but it could be government policies that could be reducing. Trade is more like macro, but government policies to improve infrastructure, government policies to, for example, improve education and training. Also, more education and training can be found. So, for example, अगर आप देखें फैसलाबाद is the place where all the textile players operate. वहाँ पे टेक्सटाइल का यूनिवर्सिटी भी है, सो वहाँ पे लेबर भी बेहतर है, वहाँ पे रिसोर्सेज भी बेहतर हैं, तो इट्स व्हाट वी कॉल external economies of scale, because you may get cheaper human capital, you can get cheaper people, universities and colleges are there, input providers are there, and so on. So that's what we call external economies of scale. And similarly, in Faisalabad, there will be other industries supporting the industry. For example, textile के लिए वहाँ पे आपके एक्सपोर्टर भी बैठे हुए हैं वहाँ पे, आपकी ट्रेडिंग एंड फॉरवर्डिंग एजेंसीज भी बैठी हुई हैं वहाँ पे, बिकॉज आपकी एक्सपोर्ट्स वहाँ से होती है. सो दिस इज व्हाट वी कॉल एक्सटर्नल इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल when the size of the industry grows. Sometimes, guys, there's also what we call diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale is the idea that, sometimes when you increase the size of your operation, long run average cost also goes up. Like if I draw my LRAC curve, there could be a possibility that LRAC starts to rise after a particular point. And so rising LRAC is called diseconomies of scale. And the main reason for diseconomies of scale is simply managerial diseconomies of scale. यानी कि it becomes difficult to manage people. Why? Because there could be poor communication. When you become larger, communication could break down. When you become larger, there could be lack of motivation. People can feel motivated, less motivated, because when you are working in a big firm, you don't get the appreciation that much often. In a small firm, you do small anything, you can get appreciated. Also, in a large firm, there could be a possibility of loss of direction and coordination. So all of these come under what we call managerial diseconomies of scale. Make sense? Are we good? Easy stuff. Sometimes, guys, there could also be a possibility of external diseconomies of scale. External diseconomies of scale simply happen because of what we call industry. When it grows, it results in sometimes the cost of production for firms to rise. Like, for example, अगर congestion हो जाए, या for example road, या for example pollution की वजह से सब suffer करें, या कोई negative externalities हो जाए because of like industry growing. A great example of this is that जब A level schools बहुत सारे आए, तो टीचर्स की जो थी सप्लाई तो कम थी, सबकी सैलरीज बढ़ गई. तो everyone was finding it difficult to find good A-level teachers at one point in time, pre-COVID. And as a result of that, there were shortages in the market, which is an example of what we call a negative externality of some sorts, where basically human resource is getting sort of, or there's a lack. I won't say negative externality, but I would say that it's external diseconomies of scale, because the growth of the industry is resulting in everyone now to have a higher average cost. Make sense? So that would be external diseconomies of scale. Guys, कोई सवाल अभी तक? Any questions that we have? Okay, now we move on to the size of the firm. Okay, so we say firms can stay small or grow. When they grow, they may grow for profit motive, to make more money. They may grow for cost motive, which is achieving economies of scale. They may grow for market power motive, which means simply to increase their dominance, become a monopoly. Or they may grow for risk motive, which is basically to diversify their portfolio. So these are the four reasons why firms may grow: the profit motive, cost motive, market power motive, and risk motive. Make sense? Are we good? Now, when you grow, you can achieve growth through internal growth or external growth. Okay. Internal growth is simply increasing the size of your operations. Okay. External growth, guys, is basically your merger or acquisition, like somebody acquire you, or there's a merger that could take place. Uh, and when you look at external growth, the merger and acquisition, this could basically be between uh, two firms that could be causing what we call in turn your horizontal integration. Horizontal integration. There could be vertical integration, or they could be what we call sometimes conglomerate. Okay. What about increasing market share through अगर खुद ग्रो करोगे तो ये this is increasing market share बता है अगर आप खुद ग्रो कर रहे हैं तो this is what it is market share through this अगर आप externally grow कर रहे हो like आपने कहा कि horizontal करते हैं horizontal क्या होता है you know horizontal is like this right horizontal mean same stage of production firms come together. Like for example, आपने बोला, what if you say two firms that are in the same kind of like stage, like for example, Cedar and Nixer, they combine together. Allah na kare, but let's say Cedar and Nixer, they combine together. That would be horizontal integration. Does that make sense? Vertical integration, on the other hand, will be different stage of production. For example, like a coffee producer or farmer plus, let's say, retailer. If they come together, they are just called vertical integration, which is different stages of production. And this could be, we could say vertical integration could be forward, which means when a producer is combining with retailer, that would be forward, or it could be backward. Let's say a manufacturer decides to acquire or join hands with an input producer. Okay. Or you could also be conglomerate. What is conglomerate? Conglomerate is when two firms they come together which are completely unrelated businesses. Like for example, Pepsi and Lay's, for example, right? Does that make sense? Ayan, what is the Amazon example? Yeah, two different businesses come together, that's conglomerate. Are we good, guys? Does that make sense? Easy stuff. Any questions? So I've chosen an easy topic for today's discussion. It's complicated nahi hai. Okay, so this is the story so far. So guys, why do एक सवाल एक discussion है हमारी कि why do you want to grow? You want to grow because sometimes you want to get market power, sometimes you want to get economies of scale, and so on. Sometimes you want to basically also diversify risk. When you sometimes you want to diversify risk also. That's also a point. We need to diversify risk. That could also be a possibility. So let me write this: diversify risk. Okay, these are some of the reasons why you want to sort of, like horizontal would be gaining more market power because that's the two different firms in the same stage of production are coming together. Vertical could be, getting more control and even like market power or market share, because if you control inputs, you could also control the market. And conglomerate is simply, diversifying the risk. Okay, makes sense? Any questions, guys? Okay, so why do small firms still be able to survive given how everyone want to be a large firm? We say it could be possible that small firms are surviving because of the size of the market. If the size of the market is really small, like for example, if you are in a neighborhood जो कि बहुत छोटी सी neighborhood हो, वहाँ पे आपका एक छोटी सी दुकान हो, corner stone kind of a thing, corner store kind of thing, that could be surviving because size of the market is really small. Like अगर आप किसी छोटे से गांव में हो, तो वहां पे इम्तियाज स्टोर नहीं खोल सकते बिकॉज इतनी डिमांड ही नहीं है. राइट? डज दैट मेक सेंस? इंश्योर, यस, आई कैन गो बैक टू दिस एंड शो यू. आर वी गुड? डज दैट मेक सेंस? Okay, guys, you could also stay small because or firms are small in a market where there are low barriers to entry. If the barriers to entry are really low, you can easily enter the industry. That would be basically what we call another possibility where you may have small firms. What are barriers to entry? Barriers to entry could be, like um, barriers that basically does not allow new firms to enter. For example, it's really easy to set up a fruit vendor shop, but it's not easy to sort of set up Imtiaz store because Imtiaz store requires a lot of money. Similarly, it's really difficult to get into, for example, A-level market, but it might be easier to get into O-level market. All of these could be what we call barriers to entry because of something or the other that's stopping people to enter the market. We'll discuss barriers to entry also in detail a little later. That's in another chapter. The nature of the business could also be a reason why you are small. For example, if you are in a haircut or in a teaching market or tailor, they require what we call a smaller class sizes or smaller sort of clientele or a smaller sort of customer base. Or, for example, even if you're a doctor, that's the same thing that you may not be able to see many patients all in one go. You may need to see one patient at a time. So that could also be a reason why you stay small. Make sense? Similarly, you could also be staying small because of the niche market. Let's say your market is such that the product that you're selling is niche or like really expensive or luxury product which requires not many people to enter the market. It may not be possible for new people to enter the market. Make sense? Similarly, you could also be staying small because of diseconomies of scale, which means that your industry or your firm can achieve diseconomies of scale really quickly. Remember, diseconomies of scale क्यों होती है जब आप क्वांटिटी बढ़ाते हो? So, for example, ऐसे एक रेस्टोरेंट है, वो फाइन डाइनिंग करता है और वो लेट्स से अपना ज़्यादा कस्टमर्स को बेचना शुरू करता है, अपने बिजनेस को एक्सपेंड करता है, 2 या 3 फ्लोर और लगा लेता है टू सेल एंड सडनली रियलाइज करता है कि क्वालिटी गिर रही है. वाई? बिकॉज you could suffer from diseconomies of scale very quickly. So what is good for you to stay small? Can small firms survive due to subsidies? Well, small firms, if they're surviving due to subsidies, that means that they can survive, but that's not a reason. हम ये कह रहे हैं इन सारी चीजों पॉइंट्स में कि स्मॉल फर्म्स, लार्ज फर्म्स जब इतने बेनिफिशियल हैं तो स्मॉल फर्म्स क्यों हैं? एंड उसका रीजन ये है कि स्मॉल फर्म्स जो हैं जिस मार्केट में ऑपरेट करती हैं वो बहुत स्मॉल होती हैं, बैरियर्स टू एंट्री स्मॉल होते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ज़्यादा बिजनेसेस वहाँ पे होते हैं. नेचर ऑफ बिजनेस ऐसा होता है जहाँ पे स्मॉल फर्म्स ही काम कर सकती हैं, बड़ी फर्म्स नहीं आ सकती. नीश मार्केट होती है, वहाँ पे भी लार्ज प्लेयर्स नहीं आते, सिर्फ स्मॉल फर्म्स ही आपको केटर करती हैं. और कुछ ऐसी मार्केट्स होती हैं यहाँ पे डिसइकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल इतनी जल्दी होता है कि इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर large firms to operate or firms to become large really quickly. So, guys, this was my chapter 2, which means we can do on Monday revenues and profits. So thank you for coming. It was a pretty useful session. I will also put the recording of this session, and we also finish in 40 minutes, which is amazing. Okay, take care, guys. Have a good one. Bye bye.